So today, God is saying that yes, there's supposed to be forgiveness, of course, between you and your adversaries and those who go against you, right? But on the other hand, the Lord intentionally creates like waves between you and your enemies because that's what causes you both to grow. The Lord is purposeful, right? As we know, He's strategic, He's purposeful, He doesn't waste things. So, therefore, if everything for you is just sunshine and butterflies, how are you going to grow? And if everything for your adversaries and those who go against you is sunshine and butterflies, how are they going to grow? The Lord has to purposely allow tension between the yourself to them and them to you so that both ends can grow, okay? The Lord is showing me that it's kind of like a flower. As we know, the Lord has, if they're planted, right? But we see beautiful flowers, wildflowers, planted flowers. But when a flower bed is planted outside, it doesn't just get some rain and some sunshine and that's it, and just everything's perfect. There's windy days, there's days of drought, there's days of too much rain. So depending on your climate, there could even be hail, etc. So meaning that even though the Lord knows how to grow a flower, and eventually that one flower will turn into a beautiful, garden, it still isn't all sunshine and rainbows for those flowers. Even the flowers have to go through hard days, a day of rain, a day of wind, whatever. But the Lord is saying these things are necessary for the flower to grow. The sunshine is necessary, the rain is necessary, but so is the wind, and sometimes even that hail. It makes the stalks of the flower to be more resilient, right? So that it can stand up. And so the Lord's saying that humans, flowers, animals, they have to have some sort of, even animals that are outside, livestock, say, they're out in the wind, they're out in the cold temperatures. Things have to go through difficult moments and days and times just to grow and thrive, right? And humans are no exception. So the Lord will allow there to be difficulty between you and your enemies for the sole purpose of growing, right? So it's important to embrace and accept the lessons that the Lord is serving, but of course forgive at the same time simultaneously, right? Now the Lord is saying is that because you walk with the Lord, you see these things for what they really are. I walk with the Lord, so therefore that's how I can break this down and understand this properly. If you walk with the Lord, then you too understand what I'm trying to say here. But your adversaries and enemies and those who go against you, they walk with Satan, right? And again, whether they realize it or not, they do. And yeah, they may not be on their knees bowing down to Satan, maybe even they consider themselves to be Christian. Maybe they grew up Christian, or maybe they have some sort of belief in God, or, maybe they try to pursue the road towards the Lord. And maybe they fall into this, some of them, not all, everybody's different. You have many different people that come against you. For me, for instance, there's lots of people that come against me. It's not just one size fits all, right? Some of the people that come against me have zero relationship with God. Others of them claim to be of God, but they're not. And others of them, maybe they really truly are of God, and a good person, but they, just aren't as disciplined, right? Or, they're just, it's none of the above, but that they're just stuck in the world. And that's the thing, is when we're stuck in the world, we can be good people. Myself, I've always been a good person, right? Always. But when I was in the world, I was more apt to be prone to pride, to envy or jealousy or bitterness, or you know what I mean? These negative emotions that are spawned from Satan. I was more apt to fall into those traps, temptation, sin, things like that, because of the fact that I was in the world. So I wasn't following Satan per se, like I was, because I was ignorant and I was in the world, but I wasn't trying to be on Satan's team and doing bad things and a bad person, right? Inside, I wasn't ever. But at the same time, there were things that I was doing in the past when I was in the world before I walked exclusively with the Lord, that because just for the fact that I listened to secular music, the fact that I hung out with worldly people that were enthralled in sin, the fact that I partook in the past in drinking or smoking or, any new age activities, things like that. These things, even if you don't do any specific sins, like I said, drinking or new age, but just for the fact that you're hanging out with people that don't walk with the Lord, they can influence you. Their demons that are in them can transfer to you and rub off on you. Then demons and demons are rubbing shoulders with each other, right? So that's why it's important to guard your eye gates and ear gates, like the Bible says. Watch what you're hearing, watch what you're seeing, watch what you're taking in, because you could be going to church every Sunday, a great person, but if you're taking in things through your eyes or your ears or even through other people that are worldly or secular, or not good for you, like that don't jive with Christ, then you will have these things transferred to you, and for one, be more easily used by the devil, and for two, not be as righteous, right? So anyway, so you probably can identify and relate with having a variety of people that come against you, right? I know that I can. These people, again, fall in all different categories. However, the Lord is saying that the common theme that they all share is, it doesn't matter if they claim to be of God or not, if they're in the world, whatever. If they aren't fully submitted to the Lord and sacrificing themselves and giving themselves to the Lord on a daily basis, not weekly, not monthly, but every single day, this world is so full of sin and evil that even I would go so far as to say that if you go back and forth, like if you get close to God for just say a week, and then you trail back off and you're in the world for a week, and then you go back to God for a week and you trail back off for a week, I'm going to go out to say that, because that would obviously work out to 50% of the time, that's enough of a separation from the Lord that you can get yourself into a different position, right? The world today is so corrupt that in order to maintain your integrity, your righteousness, you would need to walk with the Lord every single day. And even then, you're going to have so much influence around you trying to cause you to stumble or fall, or make up lies about you, or think in their head that you're something you're not, or tell others that you're something you're not, or try to generate false claims or accusations and things like that. Even when you're with the Lord on an everyday basis, these things still happen because of the world being so corrupt. Back, say, even 50 years ago, maybe 1 out of 10 people you'd meet would fall into this category. But today, now it's 9 out of 10 of the people you meet. You really can't be trusting no one in this world. Like, I'm not trying to, say, but I'm just saying, like, love your brother, love everyone around you, but just, you really can't be trusting. I would go that far as to say, like, 90% of people have an angle. They have something that they're trying to do. They either are walking around envious of others, they're walking around trying to bring others down, they're greedy, they're prideful, they're foolish, and they're just trying to get you down. They're trying to bring whoever many people down they can, and if they come to find that you claim to be of God, then you're an even bigger target to them than somebody else, right? So with that being said, what I'm trying to say is, someone who doesn't even walk with the Lord every day is a target for this. But someone who does walk with the Lord every day is an even bigger target for this. So if you're someone that goes back and forth where you ebb and flow with God, I don't recommend that. I recommend that you should be steadfast with the Lord every single day, just simply for the fact that the world is how it is and it's just getting worse by the day. That the only way you can maintain that righteousness is by working on it every single day, not once a week, once a month, but every day. And even then, there's still going to be stumbles and struggles, not for the fact that it's you per se, but because once you receive the Lord is in you, but because there's so much outside influence trying to get at you that it's very difficult, right? So anyway, so the Lord is saying that those who go against you, there's going to be tension between them, for the fact that the Lord is trying to grow the both of you, and it is working. some of your enemies are growing in certain ways, and you, of course, have grown in a lot of ways, right? So the Lord is also teaching you how to handle these worldly people, right? Because the Lord has plans for the world, and the world is under judgment, as I've said before, and it's going to continue to be under judgment, especially as we're in this vicious cycle, because the world is so corrupt and wicked and full of sin. It falls under judgment. Because the world falls under judgment, it gets deeper into the corruption and the sin, and then the world falls under more judgment, and it just keeps progressing and progressing and getting a bit worse and a bit worse, right? So the Lord is saying is that if you were struggling to maintain your righteousness 2 years ago, it's still going to be a struggle next year, right? The struggle to maintain righteousness is not going to stop, anytime soon. You're going to have more and more people trying to bring you down, just simply because as the Lord is judging the world, more and more people are falling more into the sins and the worldly ways to try to counteract that, right? So the Lord is teaching you as his vessel, as his chosen one, as his child, how to handle the people in the world that are in and amongst you, right? Because what you're going through now, you'll probably go through a year from now, right? Or maybe a year after that, right? So the Lord is teaching you how to navigate that. But the Lord is telling me that, like, when his children are his children, and they've proven as such that they are, these enemies that go against you, what's been happening recently, is what Lord is revealing to me today, is these enemies that go against you, they just don't get it, is what it is. They don't get it. It's like the Lord has shown them over and over and over again, and they still can't connect the dots, right? They've gotten a few things picked up, but they are lacking others. So like, the Lord gave you both a puzzle, and yours is pretty much solved, and they only have taken some of, like, they started out with no piece, like they had the puzzle, but they weren't trying to build any pieces. The Lord is saying that they've taken and started to build some of the pieces, but because they're not understanding, the picture isn't being created properly in front of them. So they either have a distorted picture, like put the pieces together improperly, or they're only putting little bits and pieces together, but the picture is not coming in front of their eyes like it's supposed to, because they're not seeing it correctly. And what I mean is that the Lord has shown your enemies and those who come against you that you're the real deal, that you're like his, and that you're a true chosen one. They maybe thought that the whole chosen one thing was a joke back when, or they thought the chosen one thing meant something else, like it was a new ageism, it's something to do with new age and awakening and spirituality and all this other stuff, when it's not. It comes from Christianity. It talks about, as we know, as we've said before, the devil copies everything that the Lord does. So the whole term chosen ones, that's why there's even a show about it, a Christian show about it, the chosen one, is because it comes from the Bible, right? And as we know, like, Jesus chose his disciples. The Bible talks about the chosen ones. God talks about his chosen children and stuff. So the whole terminology stems from the Bible. It comes from Christianity. But of course, New Age has to copy everything, so they put their own weird, twisted spin on it. But that's the original part. So your enemies understand this. Well, no, let me rephrase that. They think they understand this whole chosen ones concept. They figured out that it is a specification. Now, your enemies think that they're the chosen ones, okay? But yet they don't walk with the Lord fully, and they're not fully submitted. They don't live a righteous lifestyle like you do. They don't put in the work every single day to maintain their closeness with the Lord. And if they do put in work, they end up falling back. They take a step back out eventually. So the Lord is showing me that these enemies, again, this isn't all, but this is for some of them. They'll go against you, right? Which is not of God. So therefore, how can they be a chosen one if they're going against people? Then they'll receive judgment because of the fact that they're going against God's chosen children. Then they'll turn around and try and get close to the Lord, right, to come out of their judgment, which is, that's okay in a way, because the Lord wants them to, that's the ultimate goal, is to save them, like I've said before. Then once they feel like as if they've done enough, or that everything is like, it gets to a manageable level, then they default back into the world again. Then they just go back into the world. So the Lord is showing me, it's like, picture there's two children. A parent has two children, because the Lord always gives me analogies of like a child, because we're his children, right? Picture there's a parent with two children. There's one child that is obedient every day. Every day they do their chores, they clean their room, they do their homework, they have a positive attitude, things like that. And of course, nobody's perfect, so the child will stumble sometimes, but for the most part, this child is trying to be good and obey and be disciplined and follow the rules and things like that, right? Which is yourself, right? Then on the other hand, this other child of this parent's, this sibling, this other child goes back and forth, where they'll do good and then they'll start to do bad. And then because they do bad, they get a punishment. And because they get a punishment, then they do good, because they want the punishment to go away. So then when the parent lets up because they're doing good, then instead of maintaining doing good like the other sibling is, they default back to being bad again. Kind of like when mom's eyes are on me, or when mom's or dad's eyes are on me, I'll be good. When they take the second they take their eyes off me, I go awry again. And then when their eyes come back on me, I do good. And when they take their eyes off, I go back to being bad again. You know what I'm trying to say? The Lord is saying that is the comparison between you and these adversaries that come against you. That's why you're chosen and they're not. It's simply for the fact that you understand this concept, so therefore like for example, the show The Chosen One, where and there are they going to the Lord, back into sin, back to the Lord, back to sin, you know what I'm saying, if you even want to just paraphrase the show itself. So the Lord doesn't expect perfection, but you understand that it's a work every day. Just like in the scenario I said, the one child understands that in order to receive good merit, they would have to be in a good standing every single day, not fall out. And if they do, but not this back and forth type of thing, right? The Lord is saying these enemies and adversaries, that's what they do. And they're not getting it. Like, the Lord is trying to paint this message to them that I'm not trying to show you that you're chosen. I'm not trying to have you copy this person. What I'm trying to make you do is stop going against my child. This is my child. Whether you like them or not, whether you think they are or not, is irrelevant. The Lord is trying to show you, those who come against you, this is my child. They are chosen. It is what it is. Stop going against them. And so sometimes when the Lord's eyes are on these adversaries, they will stop going against you. But the only reason they stop going against you is because the Lord's eyes are on them. And they don't want to be under his judgment or his punishment, so to speak. But then they'll get to that point or whatever, and then the Lord turns his eyes away, and then they go turn back and default back into the world. They take 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, and then they go back to trying to attack you and go against you as his child, right? And then the Lord repeats the process because they're repeating the process. It's very cut and dry. It's very simple. All the Lord expects of these people is to just accept the fact that you're his child and you're chosen, period. They don't have to like it. They don't have to like you. They don't have to do this, that, or the third. You're not expecting anything from these people. You actually pray for them. You hope for their salvation. You hope that they can get it right and walk with the Lord properly, right? And the Lord knows that. Your heart is in the right place and has been for a very long time. Theirs isn't. And that's why you don't receive this and they do, right? And so they think that there's like this conspiracy and this magic thing going on or something. And it's like, no, it's none of that stuff. It's just very simple. It's no different than going back to the sibling example that I painted out, right, of the 2 siblings. So say there's like the so-called good sibling and then the bad sibling, where one is acting in obedience and one is acting in disobedience. One is acting righteously and one is acting unrighteously. What would the parent do or say if the one that's acting disobedient and unrighteously is now on top of the disobedience and unrighteousness? They're going against and trying to attack and slander and make up stories about the one who is walking in obedience and righteousness, right? That is going to doubly frustrate the parent, because not only is that sibling a hypocrite, but also they're worrying about what the obedient sibling is doing instead of what they should be doing. Mommy? Instead of what they should be doing, and the parent would want them to be focusing on themselves, right? Instead of the other one. So that's what the Lord is saying, is that, and not to mention that the parent would defend that child because that child is doing what is expected of them, and the other one is the one that's acting out of order, right? So who are they to say anything? And that is basically, like, somehow we understand this in like human terms. Like, me explaining this analogy makes sense, but somehow the Lord is saying that somehow these lines get crossed and lost on these adversaries, these enemies. They don't seem to understand this logic. They think that there must be something more to it than this, and it's not. It's just that cut and dry simple, right? So again, they understand this concept of chosen ones, probably because of the New Age twist on it. However, they think that they're the chosen one and you're not. But yet, if that were the case, then why, when they keep doing all these things against you, are you still in that obedient, righteous standing, and they continue to be in the disobedient, unrighteous standing, right? And so the Lord is like saying to me to say towards them is that, first of all, you're not necessarily chosen, right? Not every single person in the world is chosen. That's the whole point of being chosen. And secondly, it's proven that you're not chosen, because if you really were chosen, you wouldn't be doing this. You wouldn't be walking in disobedience and unrighteousness, going against somebody else, right? Like, you just wouldn't be doing that, especially someone that's established and proven that they are a child of God and that they themselves are chosen. Chosen ones don't go against other chosen ones. They don't do that. Third of all, the Lord is saying that, say you are chosen and all this stuff, like your adversaries say they are chosen, then the Lord is saying, well, then why are you being disobedient and unrighteous, and why are you going against, and how are you not understanding this concept, right? So there's just so many things to it. So they think that you're not chosen, even though you've like proven that you are, and they think that they are chosen, even though they've proven that they aren't. So they got the puzzle pieces backwards. And then the Lord is also saying is that then secondly, on top of it, they want to try and make up these false claims about you, even though the proof is in the pudding, right? The actions speak for itself. When these adversaries go against you, the judgment from God comes upon them. So if they were so right in what they're talking about and what they're doing, and their actions are right and their thoughts are right and their feelings are right and their opinions are right and everything on them is just top notch, why are they receiving this judgment then? And with you, why are they going against you, if they're seeing the fact that the Lord's got his hand on you? So it just doesn't make any sense. And the other thing too is that one of the fruits of the Holy Spirit is wisdom. Well, two of them is wisdom and discernment. I was going to say just discernment, but the Lord's saying no, wisdom and discernment. So two of the fruits of the Holy Spirit and gifts of the Holy Spirit is wisdom and discernment. So when you truly walk with the Lord and you're a child of his, and especially if you're chosen, the Lord is going to bestow upon you wisdom and discernment. So if these enemies and adversaries were so righteous with the Lord and they were chosen and they were all the same things as you are, then why do they lack such wisdom and discernment, right? These would be things automatically that they have. And what does this look like? Well, for instance, the Lord is telling me that because these enemies and adversaries lack the gifts of wisdom and discernment, because the Lord hasn't given them these gifts, for several reasons, but one of the biggest is because they walk in disobedience and unrighteousness, and they go against you. Therefore, they don't know falsities, so they entertain false people thinking that they're real, but they're not, because their discernment's off. They listen to false teachings and think that they're real when they're not, because their discernment's off. So like someone who's not chosen will come and tell these adversaries that that this person is a chosen one, and they'll go and say these things to the adversaries like, oh well, this person's a false prophet, and this, and then because the devil is still in the behind the scenes on the underlyings in and within these unrighteous ones, these adversaries, the devil's in them, right? Because of their worldly ties and their sin cycles and the fact that they haven't properly repented and that they still go against you and all these other things. Because the devil is in them and working through them, the Lord is saying that they fall for these little, like, these misconceptions, like these little tweaks and tricks and stuff. They fall for it because of all of what I said. They don't have the wisdom and discernment that true chosen ones have, and because they don't have the wisdom and discernment, they are making choices that are putting them in jeopardy, right? So when the light is red, they think it's green and they go, and then they get into a car crash. When the light is green, they think it's red, and so they can go, but they think they need to stop, and then they get into a car crash. They're mixing up the signals. Whereas the true chosen ones, they get a red light, they see it's red, they stop. Then the light turns green, they know it has turned green, they know it's green now, then they go. And so then meanwhile, these adversaries are looking over at you and they're like, why? I'm expecting you to get in crashes and you're not. Why am I getting in crashes? And it's like, well, there's several reasons for that, but one of the reasons is that because you're in the world and you have the devil working in and through you, your wires are able to get crossed to where you think you have a red light, but you actually have a green, and then vice versa. You think you have a green light, but you actually have a red. So if you're driving and and they mess up the traffic lights, an accident can happen because you're getting a green and the other party's getting a green, then you're both going, right? Or you're supposed to get a red, but you get a green and you go, and the other person, is supposed to get a red and they don't. You know what I'm saying? This is what causes these crashes in real life. So that's the thing, is that these enemies and adversaries are spiritually crashing and they don't understand. They're confused. But the Lord is saying that he's just had enough of it, because he's given them this very same puzzle that you have. They think they're chosen. Okay, so you're chosen, you received this puzzle, you've already solved it. Not fully, of course, but you've put a lot of the pieces together already, thanks to the Lord and your wisdom and discernment. But you also have received the Lord's grace and your wisdom and discernment because you walk in obedience and righteousness on an everyday basis, right? Not a once a week basis, not when I'm under punishment or judgment basis, right? These adversaries that go against you, they have put a couple of these pieces together to understand a couple of things, but there's still, some of the pieces have been put together backwards and upside down, and it's not making a clear picture to them. They might think they have a clear picture here and like that things are getting put together in place, but they're not. And there's, again, several reasons why, but the Lord is having me hone in on wisdom and discernment. And so unfortunately, these people keep going around in circles and circles, and it's because they're in the world. It's because they don't walk with the Lord every single day. They don't make it a commitment. They haven't fully properly repented. Some of them don't even have interest in God. Some of them will 1 minute go to God and then the next minute they're back to their false gods or their idolizations. Some of them will temporarily, for a little while, give up all the things they need to do, but meanwhile they'll still simultaneously be attacking you, whether it be verbally, whether it be mentally, whether it be spiritually, whether it be physically. It doesn't matter. They are completely consumed with proving that they're a chosen one and you're not, you're false and they're real, that you're this and they're that, but the Lord is saying that all their perceptions are off, they're wrong. What they think is twisted, they almost have it, they just need to flip it. You're the chosen one, not them. You're righteous, they're not. You're not in the world, they are. They almost had it, it just has to go the other way, right? But again, because Satan is able to work in and through them, Satan is able to continually cross signals and twist and tweak everything to where it's misaligned. So yeah, and then it's also at their own hindrance, because the Lord is saying that then when they go, because of all of this, it's like a domino effect. Then they go seeking things, they come across prophetic words, they listen to prophetic words that they think are for them, but they're not for them, they're for you as the chosen one. But because they put it on and they adopt it as theirs, then they get really messed in their mind, because then they think that the things that the prophet is saying for the chosen one is what the prophet is actually intending for them. But why would the prophet be giving a prophetic word to someone who's wicked and walks in the world, someone who's being used by Satan? Why would the prophet do that? And then they hear other prophets that are false prophets say, and you and I know that that's a false prophet, because we have the gift of wisdom and discernment from the Lord, so we know that the Lord gave us a heads up on that. But because they don't have the wisdom and discernment, they'll come across a false prophet, and the false prophet will say, oh, these are this is a false prophet, and then they sit and think that that's you. They're like, oh, that must be them, this one's a false prophet. And then now, you know, next thing you know, these unrighteous adversaries are calling the true prophets of the Lord, the true children of God, his chosen ones, they're now calling them false, and going and making it out to others and to themselves that this is a false prophet when they're actually not. And then they get judgment, and then they scratch their heads why they're under judgment. Well, gee, I wonder. You see what I'm saying? And so the Lord is saying that they're kicking themselves. They're kicking themselves. And then they turn around and blame you. They think that you're doing something to kick them, but they're kicking themselves. They're going around in circles. I mentioned this before. It's like a dog chasing its tail and thinking that it's another dog chasing them, but it's in reality, it's just the dog doing it to themselves, right? They can stop at any time. But the dog doesn't understand that. The dog doesn't understand that they're the ones biting their own tail. These adversaries don't understand they're biting their own tail. So they've come to the conclusion that there's such a thing as chosen. They just don't think it's you when it is, and that it's them when it's not. Backwards. They've come to the conclusion that there's prophets out there, but they think the false prophets are the good one, like the real true prophets, and the real true prophets are the false ones. Backwards. They think that you're someone you're not. You walk in righteousness and obedience every day. They think you walk in disobedience and you're unrighteous. Then here's them that are in and of the world, and they think that they're very disciplined and righteous when they're not. Backwards. So the Lord is saying, like, you almost have it, and he can't help them any more than he has. He's already given them the same. He knows it's possible because they have the same puzzle as you have. And you've been able to crack it and put it together, so he knows that it's possible to do so, and he's allowing them to go for it because they want to think that they're you. They want to think that they're righteous and that they're chosen and that they're good and that you're bad and that you're wicked and you're this and all this stuff. They have it twisted. So the Lord is saying, okay, well, if you think that, then you go give this a shot then, like they did. And they're getting frustrated because their puzzle isn't in the same order as yours or as it could be. And the Lord's getting frustrated with them because it's not in the proper order either. And yet it's just them doing it to themselves over and over again, right? And meanwhile, you're a good person, so therefore you take the time out to give them tips and pray for them and, like, you know, try to support them and stuff. Like myself, I have adversaries that go against me, but yet I still take time out of my day to make the videos in obedience to the Lord, to put the messages out that they most undoubtedly come across and listen to. But instead of actually absorbing and taking in the information that the Lord is giving to them through myself or even yourself, instead they want to just like put down everything that you're saying and make it that, you know, you're just coming from this misconstrued place that you're not, and that they can get the answers elsewhere, and that they got this on lock, they got it in the bag. But yet everything that they're doing is just causing them to go round and round like a dog chasing their own tail. And then they get frustrated. So they're their own enemy, right? And the Lord is saying that he allows this to happen, this tension that they're going through, that they've projected on you, because it's growing them. Like, even though they're going around in circles, it is slowly growing them, because they're discovering things like that they throughout this walk with the Lord that you're on, through projecting to you, they're discovering things through you and through this situation that they wouldn't have discovered or been privy to had they not been on this, like had they not been in the mix and involved in this plan and this journey that the Lord has carved out, right? And vice versa for you, you're learning as well, but vice versa on the flip side of through, what not to do, basically, right? What to do and what not to do. You're the example of like what to do, and they're the example of what not to do. And so because the Lord is highlighting on your end in a different way, no different than going back to the example of the two children, the child that's in obedience and righteousness and trying to do good, the parent is going to reward that child, right? And then the child that's in disobedience and unrighteousness, the parent is going to more discipline that child. So the child that's being rewarded is not only going to see the benefit of it, but they're also going to see of what not to do through the discipline of the sibling, right? So because of the standing that you have in your vantage point, you're able to see how just being obedient and righteous to the Lord benefits you and how it rewards you. But then in turn, you're also able to see what not to do and the discipline of the unrighteous and what happens if you don't walk with the Lord on a day-to-day basis when you are in and of the world, right? And vice versa. The Lord is using this as an example that hopefully, just like the disobedient child will hopefully use their obedient sibling as a muse or as an example as what to do, what to learn from, right? And so the Lord is saying that just like in households, sometimes he'll give a parent, a family, those two opposing children or siblings where one is good and does well and the other maybe not so much, right? And it grows the parent, it grows the children, and it teaches the good child, so to speak, what not to do, and it teaches the bad child what to do, right? Using the two siblings as examples for each other. So the Lord is hoping that in that same analogy that these enemies and adversaries that go against you, that eventually in time of them continuing to be disciplined for what they're doing that's unrighteous and continuing to watch you be rewarded for being righteous, that maybe eventually, hopefully, they'll crack the code too and figure it out and be able to put their pieces in proper alignment like you have, and and then finally, get it for themselves, right? That's what the Lord is doing here, is like trying to use the tension from your adversaries to grow you and teach you of how to conduct your life righteously, but then simultaneously at the same time use the righteousness and the righteous path you take as also an example on the flip side for these adversaries of what they've been doing wrong and what to try to do to get it right, right? And the Lord is saying that it's really not that hard, is it? You see it's not difficult. I see it's not difficult. But these adversaries and enemies that go against you, because they're in and of the world and have Satan working through them, they're unfortunately under the devil's confusion and delusion, and therefore they're seeing things skewed. They're not seeing things properly. And here's you coming to try to do what you can out of your righteousness, and they're still not taking it properly, right? It would be like going back to the sibling example. Imagine that the righteous sibling always has their room tidy and the unrighteous sibling always has a mess. It'd be like the righteous sibling going over to the unrighteous sibling and saying, "Hey, sibling, I see that your room is always a mess. I'm pretty good at keeping mine clean. How about I give you a hand with cleaning up your mess over here?" And that would be, the parent would smile on that because the righteous child is trying to do something good for the other sibling, right? Something with the goodness of their heart, with good intentions. But the unrighteous sibling, because of the fact that they're corrupted, most likely because, the devil's got a foothold there too, they skew that and see it as that the righteous person is the enemy. They're going against them. They have some sort of trick up their sleeve. They're coming at it with an angle, and it's like they're not, though. They're literally just being kind and offering to assist and help and support. But because the unrighteous has the devil in them, they don't see it properly, right? And so then they backlash at that sibling. They bully, they get mad, they flip out at that sibling. Well, now that child is going to be in trouble again with the parent because of what they're doing to the sibling now. Do you see what I'm saying? The Lord is saying that that is also what he does, is that he knows that you have the clean heart and clean hands, and you're going and offering support and assistance when you don't have to, per se, out of obedience and righteousness to these adversaries. And instead of these adversaries and enemies seeing it for what it really is and maybe accepting it, or, changing their heart, or taking your offer, or taking a page out of your book or something like that, learning from it, learning from you, they instead want to try and throw that back in your face and make it like, there's something you're doing, something's off with it, it's corrupt, it's this, that, and like misconstrue what exactly you're doing, right? And so then the Lord turns around and puts them under some more judgment for that, because, it's just basically having to grow and teach these enemies and adversaries how to really operate. And and it can be frustrating for you, right? And the Lord understands that. So anyway, I just wanted to say, yes, continue to pray for those who go against you. I hope this sheds some insight on how they are thinking and operating at this time. And this isn't new. This is a way they've thought and operated in the past. But the Lord is just highlighting to me today, like, for those who come across this message that are in the same position, but also for me personally, that this is what I'm dealing with, is that the Lord, gives me grace and, gives me a hug sometimes, because he understands that I get frustrated, because he knows that I try my hardest to walk with him every day, to be in discipline and obedience and righteousness, and that I, do have good intentions and a good heart, and I try to do what I can to support and assist those who come against me. Like the Bible says, turn the other cheek, and I do that, right? And the Lord knows that. And then in return, I receive this backlash and these false accusations and this false this and that, the hypocrisy. That's what it is. Like, where basically, I do one little off thing and now I must be this and that, and I'm so evil and I'm that and this. But then these people do that one off thing times 10, and they're just perfect and righteous and, all this stuff. And the fact that they have it misconstrued and backwards, the reality of things, right? Who really is wicked? Who really is righteous? Who really is chosen? Things like that. But the Lord is just saying that he's going to teach them. He's going to teach them. He has been teaching them. They're hard-headed. It takes time. And they're going back and forth because the Lord is teaching them. However, and so they do make some headway, but because they continue to default, like I already said, step back and default back into the world and back into the dance with the devil, everything gets turned backwards and upside down on them all over again. And then they become short-sighted and they stop seeing things properly. So anyways, I hope this makes sense. I hope it comes across those who the Lord intends it to come across. Those who have ears to hear, the true chosen ones will understand this message. Chances are someone will come along and listen to this message and twist and tweak it and turn it into something else that it's not, but this is what it is. If the Lord gives me any more revelation and insight on this, I will definitely make another video as he leads me to. I hope it finds you well. Take care. God bless.